Greetings, everybody. Welcome to the Salty Fundraiser, where I answer questions from friends, family, clients, and even strangers on the internet. If you have a question for the Salty Fundraiser, please feel free to shoot me an email. Today's question, I don't even know if I'm going to have to read. I'm going to set that aside. I got so wound up about today's question that I even put on my battle braids. Today's question is a question a lot of people have for me, but this particular one comes from my friend, colleague, and badass in the business, Ann Manor McClarty, asking me to talk a little bit more about being donor-centric and what that means. So let me start this conversation about locating nonprofit fundraising and philanthropic behavior where it needs to be. It is actually a symbol of a state system that has let us down. It is creating organizations to fill gaps, and by our very work in those organizations, we're allowing those gaps to continue in our government and our society. So that can be true. We can also do the work within that reality, but we have to understand that things are going to change. Thinking is going to change. We are going to evolve. We are going to learn new things. And as we learn new things, and as new things are revealed to us about the way that we're practicing, particularly in philanthropy, we're going to hopefully do better. But we're probably going to fight about it. So the reason that I locate us in that space is because donor-centricity is one of those concepts that's kind of in conversation right now. So when I was coming up through the ranks 25 years ago in fundraising, there was none of this like touchy-feely kind of stuff. It was, we went out and we roughed people up for a bag of money and then we ran away. And that was big organizations doing billion-dollar campaigns. And there's still people, you know, fundraising like that. There's still organizations fundraising like that and making money. So that's true too. I don't feel like in the next 15 to 20 years that that's going to be on the upswing. I think that those kind of organizations and those kind of transactional fundraising behaviors will be on the downswing. And so, you know, in the 90s, maybe, this term donor-centricity was coined. And one of the people who really talked deeply about that was this social researcher called Penelope Burke, who's marvelous, did all sorts of research and talked about what donors really wanted. And what that was moving our thinking from the organization as being the monolith in the center of the universe to being nicer to donors, you know? So we learned a little bit of something. We had some realization. There was some conversation about it. And we moved towards donor-centricity. Some of the misbehavior that happened in that space was that we confused being kind and caring and, you know, writing great thank you letters, conveying impact to donors. We confused that with ethical boundaries in organizations and donors. And so that's when you got into some weird stuff in the 90s. And I'm sure it was before, and I'm sure it will always be, people doing what I call concierge fundraising, which is, you know, this is when you run into, we do too much as we chase the money for the donor, and the donor buys too much power with our organization. So that's where you run into things where donors suddenly are getting medical treatment that they are jumping the line for because they're big donors to an organization. That's concierge fundraising. That's doing a donor's laundry, you know, like, and you may laugh at that, but that's actually a true statement. So what we're evolving to right now, and where I'm really leaning into and very excited about, is there's a group coming online now, and it's Voulay and his nonprofitaf.com. Like, if you're not out there, go out there. It's really thoughtful and thinking a lot about how we're creating more equity within our practice as we continue to lean in and think about the role that philanthropy is playing in the larger community. And so that community-centric fundraising is a movement that Voulet and others from Nonprofit AF have started to lean into, to start talking about, inequity in philanthropy, particularly white supremacy, and placing donors in a very centric place in philanthropy that makes it kind of a savior situation for recipients or for organizations. And that's where, we're starting to learn better. Let's start to do better. What the term that I use a lot in my fundraising, which I think probably before I was really clued into what community-centric fundraising was, I was probably starting to hear some buzz in the industry. But what I talk a lot about is relationship fundraising, right? And in a relationship, all sorts of things happen. Ethics happen, boundaries happen, sharing resources happen, but there's also places where organizations say no, recipients say no, donors say no. You can do that in relationship, and it becomes, for me, much less driven on power dynamics and a little bit more coming together about shared values, while using ethical boundaries and really transparent discussions about sharing wealth and resources in order to do good work in the world. So it's a place that I feel very passionate about. Like, just because we can do it doesn't mean we should do it in all situations. And we've got to change. So evolve. You'll probably continue to hear centric wording in all sorts of ways as we continue to evolve our thinking. But I think fundraising is a wonderful way that we can dig deep into those conversations. And how we're doing it right now doesn't mean that that's how we have to do it in 20 years. We just have to be prepared for how it's changing and recognizing and accepting our role both in what has happened before and what's going to happen again. So anyway, that's how salty I feel about this. It was a 7-minute video. My marketing person's going to kill me. Anyway, thanks for visiting. If you have any questions for the Salty Fundraiser, shoot me an email and maybe it'll come on a video in the near future. Thanks.